Have you ever wondered what the difference between watercolor and gouache is? Because if you did, you came to the right video. How you doing, everybody? It's Dyer here, and today we're going to talk about watercolor and gouache and their differences and similarities. So, let's not delay. I have some notes here. Let's get right into it. So, the difference between, well, similarities first. We're getting to similarities. The similarities between watercolor and gouache are that they both apply the same way. So if you're worried, if you want to get gouache instead of watercolor and you're worried about how it works the same way as watercolor. It moves with water. You move it around the paper with water. You use it the exact same. So they are parallel in that aspect. The next similarity that they have is that they can both be reactivated after they're dry. So if you've ever used watercolor, you can once it's dry on a page, you can use a wet brush to move around the paint that has been dried. And however you risk, getting those little pieces of paper on your paper, when it starts rolling up and stuff like that, you risk doing that. But if you have heavier paper, it's not a problem. The thing is, what I'm saying is, you can move it the same way after it's dry. So, with acrylic, you can't do that. Once it's on the page and it's dry, it's dry. So that's the difference between, well, we weren't talking about acrylic. They can be reactivated. Okay, now we're going to get into the differences. So, I have a couple of examples here. And so as I show you, what I'm talking about, as I talk about what I'm talking about, I'll show you what I'm talking about. You see what I'm saying? All right. So one of the main differences between watercolor and gouache is that gouache can be layered, right? So you can layer watercolor, but gouache, you can layer lighter colors on top of darker ones like you can acrylic. Like if you've ever used acrylic paint before, you can that you could put white right back over the paint, right? So gouache is a little different in an aspect. What you can do is that you can layer lighter colors on top of it, but you can't repaint the entire page with gouache, or else you would reactivate the paint. You see what I'm saying? So, but it still can be layered, and that's why I like it personally. So I'm going to show you an example of this. So right here on this watercolor painting that I have a previous video on, the series of paintings that go with this. But anyway, you can see here, there's this white kind of area right here. That was me trying to put watercolor on top of watercolor. It did not work. Okay, this was white watercolor, and it's barely even there. You can barely even tell it's there. So with the gouache, on the other hand, okay, you can see that I've layered this white in the eyes and on the lips on top of this painting. And also I think I actually ended up, when I painted this, it looks gritty because I removed some paint by reactivating it, like I was talking about. But then I went right back over it with lighter colors. So the highlights, I think I placed on last, but you can definitely layer on top as long as you don't scrub it around too much, or else, like I said, you will reactivate the paint. All right, next difference. Gouache is more opaque than watercolor. And so, acrylic is very pigmented and it's not very see-through, depending on what color you use, because sometimes some colors are see-through, but for the most part, they're pretty opaque and you can't see the canvas through them. This is different with watercolor. As you can see here, you can actually see the canvas through my painting, right? And you just see how splotchy it is, but with gouache, it is quite the opposite. Tell me where the canvas is. Now obviously here I removed some paint, so you're going to see the page a little bit more, but you can see that for the most part, you cannot see the page through this, through the paint. I'll show you another example. So this is also gouache, a little painting I did, and you can see that in most parts you can't see to the paper. Now here's the thing, when you add more water to gouache, it actually becomes more like watercolor, so that's why you can see it through here. But it's still you can make it as dark as you want to or as light as you want to, and I kind of like that freedom, But watercolor has its perks too, because it's just it just looks, it's something about this. Okay, that's all I can explain it as. But anyway, the thing is, you do have the freedom to either make it super opaque like this area or make it lighter like this area. All right, now with watercolor, you can also kind of make it more on the opaque side if you use more of the pigment. Now this is like some straight out the tube, straight out the pan kind of stuff. Like you don't get this by mixing watercolor with a bunch of water. Like you gotta literally put your brush in water and that's all, like rub it off some, and that's all the water you got, and then rub it in whatever paint you got so that it becomes this opaque, because you're not gonna get that color otherwise. Like here, like that's straight out the pan. Okay, so you have less freedom with watercolor. Like you can make it more opaque, however it's a lot easier to make gouache more opaque because that's how it is naturally, and you have to water it down to make it not opaque. You see what I'm saying? Okay, next, watercolor and gouache come in different packaging most of the time. So they'll both come in like tubes, which I showed on a previous video, that when I was showing you like my watercolor and my gouache, because I don't have them out and that would take too much time. So watercolor and gouache both come in tubes, but they also come in pans. But the difference is that watercolor, when it comes in pans, comes in like solid pans. They're like solid pieces, right? You can't like dip your finger in them or nothing, because it's like some solid watercolor and you have to wet it to activate it, right? Gouache, when it comes in pans, it comes in, I think, I've never seen it in solid pans. I've only seen it in jelly pans, and they're like about this big, versus watercolor pans are like that small. That's a half pan actually, but it's like they come like this big at the most, you know. But gouache comes in jelly pans, and what I mean, it's like viscous, like liquid form. Like it's not like watery, but it's like kind of thick paint. It's like almost like paint out the tube, but it's a lot thicker than that. And if you've never seen jelly paint before, jelly gouache, then just like look it up on YouTube or TikTok, and you'll see, you know, because a lot of people are using them right now, and I think I want to get me a set, but you know, not important. Anyway, so that's mostly the difference. And I believe that's all I have for you, because I don't think there's any other similarities or differences unless I'm forgetting something. Anyway, hope this video was helpful. Thank you for watching, and if you want to see more art videos like this, explaining stuff, and then me just showing art skills and crap that I learned from college, subscribe. So I'll see you guys later. Hope you enjoyed it. Bye.